folks. Welcome to the Artist Talk series for the Kansas City Artists Coalition. I am host and programs director, Jen Harris, and I'm so excited that you could be here today. We are talking to one of our May 2023 exhibiting artists, Thayer Bray, who is a drawer, a printmaker, a bookbinder, and a sculptor based here in Kansas City. He earned his BFA in printmaking and minor in art history from the University of Kansas in 2009. And for almost a decade, he was a shop assistant and then edition printer at the Lawrence Lithography Workshop in KCMO. He currently works as an admin and artist assistant at Kate Schroeder Ceramics and operates Red Shorts Bindery, a blank book bindery and zine publishing imprint. Thayer's Caregiver series, which is what will be on display at KCAC in May of 2023, is a series of small man figures on clay that represent his investigations about contemporary masculinity and its path forward. We have such an intense and intentional conversation coming up for you. I hope that you will sit down, relax, and enjoy this conversation with Thayer Bray. Thayer, I'm so excited to have you exhibiting at KCAC, and I'm excited about this work in general. So welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me everything. Tell me how you got to the subject of caregivers. Tell me how I can make assumptions about why you're exploring the concepts of masculinity, but I would love to hear it from you. So how did you land on this particular form of work, and what are you exploring here?
Well, it's something I think about a lot as a masculine male that does never feel masculine. I don't feel like I am what I feel like I am supposed to be, which is like a heroic, ultra strong, ultra confident bro. um so I think about that a lot, how different I feel, and apparently how different I behave, because I am told that I behave very masculinely. So there's this disconnect in my own self. Like I like to be a domestic. I like to, do house chores and go out and do all this, and things that are, somewhat typically unmasculine. And I have a lot of queer friends, and I have a lot of non-binary friends that I feel, I am very binary, and I am not at all queer, but I have an affinity to these people, and maybe some jealousy from their freedom that I don't feel I have, because I am a cishet white male, and I have to adhere to certain ideas that you know, some of them, by their very existence, they assert that they are against and opposed to and free from. And this is, when you read that, I'm like, oh God, are people going to think I'm some sort of like incel masculinist by, talking, even discussing, masculinity in this way? Like, oh no, I'm so sad that I'm still on top, but I don't have everything. I just have most things, that is certainly not my my interest. It's more of I was talking about a lot of the with my parents. We were talking about income, how they, when they got paid $18 an hour, or when they got paid 1970, 18 years old, they got paid like 160 an hour, and they're like, oh, that's so much less than the minimum wage now at $7 an hour. Well, that minimum wage, adjusting for cost of living, is something in the realm of $12 an hour. So they didn't have to do as much as somebody who's entering the workforce now, or somebody who's entering the workforce in 2003 when I was 18. And then I was thinking more along the lines of, well, it's that, and both my parents are white, and even though my mom is a woman, did she have to work as hard to get where she was as a person of color, a man of color, or a woman of color? And we know even now that, you know, women, that's that statistic that women make less than men. Well, or like 25% less than men. Well, white women make 25% less than men. And then I think the lowest paid people are like Latino women who make like 35 or 25 cents for every dollar that a man makes, that a white man makes. And then I was thinking more along the lines of, well, you know, that was my dad. My grandpa, he was born in 1922, and though he had a great deal of hardships, he had to compete for jobs and compete for, you know, loans and everything else with other white men, not with other white women, not with other anybody of color, just white men. And so that is, you know, talking about race and talking about gender changes. And this is very good. That's not a complaint. This is like very good that everybody is, you know, if we're talking about the American dream and talking about reaching towards a meritocracy, which I think everybody likes the idea of, having everybody compete on an increasingly even footing. And obviously, again, racism still exists, sexism still exists, ageism, all this other stuff still exists, but it is being more and more challenged. And so along with that, even though I am a white male and I, whether I want to or not, I do enjoy being privileged. I don't think there's anybody who's privileged. It's like, I don't like this at all, but there's certain changes that need to be made and certain changes that are being made that are positive. But I'm seeing like what needs to change and what needs to be kept, because there's a lot of things like, let's get rid of all this and like, well, is it, it's negative that men are, that white men especially, but men in general are seen as superior to women and you know, are given privilege. But what can, given that privilege, what can men do to become better? What can men do instead of, you know, maintaining their stance on other people, above other people? What can we do as people with privilege to raise people up? Um, what can we do to help? And is our help, you know, could that our help be toxic or could our help be like beneficial? That was a lot of stream of consciousness.
No, it was tremendous. So I think what you've communicated here is that you are giving consideration to not only you're prefacing, I'm examining masculinity because I'm examining all things. I am open to and available and in conversation with the multitudes of people in my life, in the world, who have different perspectives from me. And I recognize where we stand. I recognize what needs to change, how it needs to change, and also that what am I to do with the box that I have been put in. And I think that's what I'm receiving from your own examination of masculinity, of privilege, of identity is, what am I supposed to carry? What am I supposed to keep? What am I supposed to enjoy? What am I supposed to bear or bear witness to? And I think that's, as a queer person, as a person who identifies as a woman, I think this is a conversation I want to be having with other people in general. What is masculinity to you? What is so important that it feels personal to betray? What is it that feels forced upon you that you're maintaining? These are all questions that I think the general movements of the times want you to ask yourself, but people also don't want to have out loud. And I want to have that conversation out loud with you today. Like what is it that you feel like with masculinity specifically? What is expected of you right now that you don't want to carry forward? And like, how is that represented in your art? Because it looks like a lot of your characters are in pain or are tired, are worn in some way. And that may just be my perception of it. But I feel a deep empathy for your particular characters. And I mean that in a way that's not like, oh, I'm so sorry it's hard to be so on top. I don't feel that way. I feel like your experience is valid in that you have been handed a bag of expectations and not all of those things fit. So
Mhm.
tell me about how you're exploring masculinity in these characters. What are you rifling through? What are you discerning?
Well, right now, with the term caregiver, it is there's a song by presidents of the United States of America that's called "Poke and Destroy," and it's basically like, girls want to touch things and be nice and cute, but men just want to. I'm a boy. I want. It's the refrain is, "I'm a boy. I want to poke and destroy." It's so with the caregiver series, it's more about maybe. I mean, I like to break things and break things apart and see how things work, but at the same time, I like to nurture things and I like to not break things. I don't generally like to just, kick a sandcastle just because it's fun, because of the action, the activity of destruction. And this is, with the caregivers out there, it started out as I am not an aggressive person, and I am not a again, I don't feel like I am a manly man, and one of those things is like I am aggressive, I destroy, I conquer. Like I don't. If honestly, if I won the lottery, I would, I like I said a little bit earlier, I would feel very good being a domestic. I would very much like to have, I have aspirations outside of the house, but I mean, I love mowing the lawn. I love, emptying the dishwasher, doing the laundry. I love, cleaning the house. I love going to get buy the groceries, and those are non-masculine things. And I
Right.
notice it
Those have been
especially.
assigned. They've been
Yes,
assigned to
yes,
generally to your female partner, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And even, I have, when I was dating people, I'm married right now, but when I was dating people, there's a lot of women that would be like, that's not masculine. Like they would tell me like, that's not cool. Like you have to, you know, it didn't go so far as you have to be the main breadwinner, but it is like, no, you have to be outside and working. I'm like, well, the domestic is working. Like if I have kids, I wouldn't mind being a stay-at-home dad, or, a work from home dad or something like that. Um and this wasn't across the board, but I would not date a woman who was not a feminist, who didn't self-identify as a feminist. And even then, it's just like, that's their preference. As a feminist, you have to say, this is my preference and this is what I like. And if it conforms to this idea or that idea, um, that's fine, because that's your preference. And back to my, like, that's that negotiation of what is masculine that needs to be kept and what is masculine that needs to be discarded or altered. um so the caregiver series was about being a man and not being one who pokes and destroys, but being one who nurtures and cares for them. So in this series, every man is carrying a potted plant. And this is something personal for me as well. I have, in undergrad, which was about a decade ago, which is a long time ago, I started growing peppers. I love to snack on bell peppers, but they were so expensive that I was just like, I could get like a million of these. I got seed. They gave me free seeds, so I might as well plant them. So I just started a container garden in my rental space, and then now I own my own house and have, several dozen square feet of farmland. But it's this nice thing. It's invigorating in a way that I have some friends who are super, super mask and super broy, who are just like, I won the sports. I achieved this thing. Like I see that. But in growing food.
Where do you think this comes from? This difference between, because I can think of both types of men in my life, the men who are gardening and cannot wait to get outside right now to do that. And then the men who are like, it's raining and I wanted to play a sport today. Damn it. Like do you feel like in the general, masculine training of your youth that there was like a split in that? Is there something that creates in masculinity in our culture a more sports oriented guy versus I think I would just put you in a more like intellectual and tender place, but it doesn't mean less masculine to me. So is there something in the expectations of masculinity that forces men to be one way more than the other? Is that just kind of group think and herd mentality? Like, what is that?
I think it's more of an affinity, and I don't think there is some groupthink in both camps. I am just more comfortable being by myself and being alone. I am a social animal, and I am energized by people, but in very short, short bursts. And I think that those that are more extroverted, being in a team sport, or that's just something that they have an affinity to. It's a type of extroversion that they get and that they understand and that they're energized by. And there's, I know a lot of people who are introverts who are also sports people, and they do think, solitary sports like golf and stuff like that, and they're energized by that. And I think it's just really an affinity. Speaking of sports, my entire family, they all went to KU. They all grew up on KU basketball and football. They all yell at the TV when the sports are on. And I get a lot of flack from them because they're like, what, you don't have any school spirit? You went to KU too. Why don't you why don't you support, why don't you cheer and all this stuff? Like, it's not that I don't like it. It's that I don't care. And that's just it. I don't care. And as somebody who doesn't care about sports, I get a lot of flack from people in general. Like, what, don't you hate? Why do you hate? You can see that, when you say like, I don't care about sports, what very like sport people hear, which is fine that they like sports. I love people that like sports. They have different tastes and it's great. But what they hear seems to be, when I say I don't like sports, what they hear is, I hate sports and I hate you and I'm going to destroy everything you love. And it's like, no, because it's such an intense thing for them. Like if somebody says like, oh, I don't care about art, for me it's just like, no, you have to like art. You're going to destroy all the museums and all the galleries. But so I feel that and I understand that, but it is this it's not something I'm interested in, and it's not something that drives me, and it's not a negative thing on either way. It's just, and I think a lot of it, when you were talking about the men are depressed, I don't feel, I am not a depressed person. People think I am a depressed person, again, because I'm an introvert. And I'm like, oh, he's in his room a lot. What's that about? But it's not that I'm depressed. It's like, I enjoy my own company. I'm energized by my own company. And I have a lot of shame and anxiety. And I think in my figures, there is more, and I think it is about that not fulfilling what is expected of me and disappointing the people around me who need me to fulfill this role or that role that I am. It may be that I can fulfill that role, but I don't feel I can. And so there's that anxiety that I don't feel I can, and then shame that I am letting people down. And I think that's more of, with the caregiver holding the pot, do I have the anxiety, the figures have the anxiety of, am I doing this right? Am I doing all I can? Am I fulfilling this role as a nurturer? And by turning my back away from these templates of what a man can be, I am going into territory that's not prescribed for me. So there's more anxiety in something different and something that I have not seen as much of. And just the fear and shame of failing.
It seems like there's so much pressure for you to in your particular gender identity, maintain the status quo. I mean, even in what you're talking about with sports, right? Like, I mean, I can listen, I agree with you. You know, I'm not a particular sports fan, but I want people to like what they like. And if this is how you take the edge off of your life, or this is what you lean into to give you a sense of community and comfort and peace, by all means, do those things. Have enjoyment in an activity. But people too take it very personally when you don't subscribe to life the way they subscribe to life. And when you're talking about, you know, the fragility of this masculine identity, especially when it comes to nurturing. Am I doing this right? Is it enough? Is it thriving proof enough that I am masculine enough? Or is, now that it's thriving through the lens of nurturing, less proof that I'm masculine? Like, I feel like when you present it in this way, it continues the conundrum that I think that you're in some ways, right? Like, I can't just have an identity in the multitudes that I am, because I don't feel pulled towards a specific binary. I think that's a really interesting place to reside as a person and as a creative. And also thank you for just as a feminist, thank you for your respect and your participation, because it's for you also, you know, like, it's not,
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, right? Is that people think feminism is entirely for women. And it's like, oh no, feminism benefits all of us.
Yeah.
It should take the pressure off of you to feel like you have to be the quote unquote breadwinner, you know, the provider of this household. Like, this is why, who made these rules? I mean, I understand socially why these rules exist. I understand historically why these rules exist, but we live in a society that's seemingly beyond that level of hunting and gathering. Why do we continue to maintain this particular status quo? So I guess what I'm wondering is, when people look at this work, they observe it, are there specific messages that you want them to leave with, or is it, um, are you asking them just to give consideration to what masculinity might, like, the multitudes masculinity may contain? What are you hoping people receive from your work?
I actually, yeah, I think you hit it very well. You know, yeah, just give consideration and give thought. A lot of times, you know, when, especially in college, you're trying to figure out what your career is and what you want from your art. And what I want from my art is, I want people to, you know, it's just like a laundry list. I want people to discover it and look at it, and I want people to think about it and think about the concepts, and, you know, what is it what does it mean to be masculine? How can we figure this out together? I mean, obviously there's some of the more liberal ideas of, like, we're all in this together and there's no personal responsibility, really, I don't like, because individuals can't change things, but individuals can change themselves. So there has to be an emphasis on both group activity and personal activity, that I think in a lot of my more far right leaning friends it's all about, like, you know, an individual can't be racist, only systems can be racist. Well, individuals have to operate in systems, so therefore individuals have to be racist, and therefore individuals have to work on it individually and then through the collective. So there seems to be there needs to be more individual action, not just group action. So I want people to think about my work as individual, you know, cishet males, or just males in general, because, you know, men are still on top no matter what.
Well,
Honestly.
and there's a whole group of, I mean, and not that trans identity is new, but it is new to our culture in
Mhm.
collective conversation, right? And there is that question within the queer community of, okay, if the binary is restrictive,
Mhm.
but people feel other than what they've been presented as the option for their identity, where do we go from here? What is masculinity, and what is healthy masculinity versus what is toxic masculinity? What is healthy femininity? What do women want in their many identities, their multitudes of existence? Where can we make space for everybody to be? And like, I think there's still going to be a spectrum, right? Like that just feels like human behavior, to be with in desire of a label. I think we all want identity in that way. But the more we can push those walls out, to say, wherever you find yourself comfortable is where you belong. I think that feels like what's coming from your work. And it does feel very queer and very forward and very, very intentional in that way. So while perhaps queerness is often, I guess, related to sexuality, I still think that there is a queerness in cultural identity that you're definitely broaching upon, which is to say, we don't have to be so restricted in this one ideal of identity. It is many things, and we are all complex, and you can be those things and not be betraying a core understanding of yourself. I just think that's an incredibly powerful message to be delivering in your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope people get that.
Me too. Well, hopefully they will feel a little bit more connected to the conversation and have the opportunity perhaps to get their discomfort out of the way in reviewing our conversations, so they can go in with curious minds and open eyes. And I think once you tell people, like, you might be uncomfortable, but that's okay, that just means there's room for growth. I hope it allows their guard to fall a little bit. And I think you've done that in this work, especially because these are a particularly small scale, aren't they?
Actually, yeah, I have some little buddies right here. So this is a smaller version of a larger series, actually, but this is what, 2x1. And they actually,
Inches.
fun fact, they double as lapel pins. So
Oh, listen, that's a great way to to move that product. But they are on that tiny of a scale. It does require that you get very close and you participate in a different way. I think you have to really give examination to that. Was that on purpose, or were you? I mean, where did the size come from?
the size is definitely yes. A lot of my work is based on scale, on a very small scale, and I know I am excluding myself from larger institutions by not making monumental works. But this is back to the I think I was watching a Cindy Sherman interview, and she was talking about how she just made, like, I don't think she doesn't make work very much bigger than the Mona Lisa, if we want to go that kind of baggage. But she was talking about all these artists who just, she's like, a lot of these men artists, and not even a lot of them aren't even well known, just making these, like, wall size pieces, and why the hell shouldn't I? And so this monumentality is, I think that's also a symptom of aggressive, I don't know if this is a dick swinging, that I don't,
That's the technical
aggressive,
term.
hyper masculine. Sorry if this is like a family thing. If the, it's, flexing in a way, and that's, it's a big look at me. You can see them, the artist and the work, from across an atrium, and this stuff you can't, and I don't want you to. And this is, I think this goes a little bit back to the domestic thing, where I want this work to be lived with and seen, and just, when I go to a museum, I get yelled at because I want to get this close to the art to look at it, to see how it's made and what it is, and almost block out the rest of the world and just envelop myself in the work. And that's, that's a good thing about monumentality. You can get you know, 10 feet away and be enveloped by the work. You don't have to get yelled at by the museum guards when you get,
docent.
you know, 2 inches close. But there's still an ability to get, you know, taken in by the work and enveloped by the work and put in the reality of the figures, that I like the idea of and I want people to experience. And having these very small figures that you have to get very close to, you know, even when you get closer to a wall, the sounds of the space kind of diminish. It's like that Maya Lin Vietnam Memorial. Have you ever been up there in Washington, D.C.? You don't notice it as you walk down, but as you walk up, you remember, like, because it's cut into the earth and there's like a road on the other side of it, it's completely silent. And so it's just you and these boys, these names in silence. And then as you walk out, you get, I think it is chronological. So you get out of the war as you get out of the monument, and you are back in the world. But then you can walk back and be with these people again in just silence, and just absolute silence. And that is the kind of thing that is the experiential thing. It's not just having a visual aesthetic experience. I do want people to have a more visceral experience.
There, I can't wait to see your work on exhibition. Thank you so much for
I hope I can deliver
applying.
on this.
Listen, I believe in you and I believe in your work. So it will be on display on exhibition at the Kansas City Artists Coalition. Opening night is May 5th through the 26th. So I hope you will all join us there. Thank you for being here today and for discussing all of these many difficult topics, not only in your work, but with me here on air today. I'm really grateful to you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.